Joining me today, Tim Wendt, Director of Financial Aid and Veteran Services. Welcome to the Parkland Report, Tim.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit generally about what financial aid is. What is financial aid?
Financial aid is made up of grants, work, and student loans, typically.
So students, when they're planning, or parents, when they're planning for their children to go to college, are usually confronted with a form they have to fill out, which is a FAFSA form, F-A-F-S-A. Explain what a FAFSA form is.
The FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid, and it's available for free online at fafsa.gov. And this is the starting point for all federal and state financial aid. Parents and students must fill this out and have it sent to the schools so they can determine the financial aid eligibility for the student.
So all students, regardless of whether or not they think they qualify for financial aid, must fill out this form and send it in?
Well, they should fill out the form and send it in. There's a lot of misconceptions out there about financial aid eligibility. Some may think that they earn too much money, the parents may think that, or even the students, but really you don't know until you fill it out, send it in, and there's an offer made. If it's not an offer that you like, or if it's made up of only student loans and you don't want student loans, you can always reject those awards later.
So let's talk about the categories of financial aid available on the federal side, for example. So what are the different categories of aid a student may qualify for on the federal side?
Well, we're two different types of aid that the federal government has available. One is gift aid, and that's made up of free grant money, and the other is what they call self-help aid, and that is made up of student loans and work study, federal work study. And the reason they call those self-help type of they call that self-help aid is because the students either have to work for the money or they borrow the money and have to pay it back at a later date.
So people are familiar with the notion of student loans,
Yes.
but there are different types of student loans that students may qualify for.
Yes, there are. The federal student loan program has a subsidized student loan, which is a need-based student loan, and an unsubsidized student loan, which is a non-need-based student loan. The subsidized student loan, what subsidized stands for, is that the interest and the principal are both subsidized until that student gets out of school and they graduate, and then they pay it back, and there's no interest accruing. The unsubsidized student loan, the student loan interest is accruing the whole time that the student's in school, but the principal is deferred until they get out of school. So an unsubsidized student loan could actually add up quicker later, and they may have more to pay back versus a subsidized student loan.
So when a student, for example, applies to Parkland College, there's not an unlimited amount of aid out there, whether it be
Right.
subsidized or unsubsidized or grant or loan.
Correct.
So how do we make a determination for a student when they apply to Parkland how much, potentially how much money they're going to be entitled to?
When the parents and the students finish filling out the free application for federal student aid, at the end of it there is a number, and it's called the Expected Family Contribution, or EFC. A lot of parents and students mistakenly think this is an amount that they have to come up with to attend college, which is not true. Really what that is an index number that allows the financial aid offices at the various colleges and universities to figure out what aid that the student is actually eligible for. So we use that and to figure out like a grant amount that they would be eligible for. If a student is a freshman, there's a freshman limit on student loans versus a sophomore limit versus a junior and senior level limit on student loans. So it's really important to go for, of course, the free money first, and then if you're going to go for work study, which is a great program, that would be my second choice if I was a student, and then a subsidized student loan would be third. Unsubsidized student loan is kind of the last resort for a student because, again, the interest is accruing while they're in school.
And a federal work study means that a student is able to work on campus and receive money while they're doing that, right?
Exactly. They can work in various offices around campus. They may be able to work in an office or a department that they're interested in receiving a degree in. So it gives them some real-world experience. Also, the real great thing about federal work study is the fact that if a student is earning their money through the federal work study program, it actually helps them the following year to be eligible for more grant aid, because that money that they earn is counted as zero against their income. Now, if that same student would have worked at McDonald's or at a department store or some other place like that, their earnings would actually count against their ability to get grant aid the following semester. Plus, there's a lot of statistics out there that prove that students who work on campus become more engaged in the campus and in their classrooms, and they actually do better in school and they succeed.
Well, you know, one of the things we know is the longer a student spends on campus, the more likely they are to be successful. So that's
Exactly.
a great way for students to be connected to the campus.
True.
You know, part of the role of your office is not only to make people aware of what financial aid is available to them, but also to help counsel them about making good financial decisions.
Exactly.
A lot of the sort of, you know, kind of concept of students going to college is that there's an unlimited amount of money and I should take as much money as possible.
Right.
Whereas I think your office would counsel students to make the best economic choices in terms of limiting the number of, or the amount of dollars that you go into debt, for example, on unsubsidized loans. It's become quite a tricky business for students to kind of counsel them and steer them in the right direction.
That's exactly right. What we do here at Parkland, anytime a student comes in and asks for an unsubsidized student loan, we will have them fill out a monthly budget, ask why they need the loan, and make them turn in this form, and then meet with one of our financial aid advisors. And what they do at that point is they do try to counsel them on, you know, how much money do you really need? Because students often haven't done that legwork beforehand. That's why we have them fill out the budget. So they have a little bit more, a better idea of what they truly need, rather than coming in and just saying, you know, I ask for the maximum amount. It would be a good example is when you go to a bank to ask for a loan, any one of us, and the banker says, well, how much do you need? You don't say to the banker, how much can I get? You have a specific number in mind, and that's really what we want our students to have. They should have this knowledge of how much they actually really need, because they're going to have to pay that back later. And if they take too much loan debt now while they're in school, it may, you know, prevent them from a car purchase later in life after they graduate, or even a home purchase. So we want them to graduate with a most minimal amount of debt possible here at Parkland.
Because for many of our students who are interested in transferring on to a four-year school, this is only the first half of their educational costs that they're going to have.
That's exactly right. And the cost, of course, at a university are much greater than a community college. So they very well may be forced to take out student loans at that level, whereas here, if you're grant eligible, there's a good chance that you could pay for your entire schooling just with grants. So we discourage loan borrowing unless you truly need it. But if you do have to borrow, my thought is, and all of us agree, that this is the best investment you're ever going to make. You know, house values go up and down, which we found out throughout the Great Recession, but education is the most valuable thing that you can invest in yourself, because all the statistics prove that the more education you have, the more money you'll earn, and the less likely you'll be unemployed.
Over the course of a lifetime, for
Exactly.
sure. You know, counseling people about what to take out loans for. I mean, it used to be tuition and fees was the sort of primary sort of need that students had for financial support. But increasingly, our students are coming from either outside our district or choosing to live away from home. They seem to have additional financial expenses that perhaps maybe students 10, 15 years ago did not have.
That's exactly correct. We have a lot of our students, about 25% of all of our students here at Parkland are from outside of the district. So they have to find a place to live, they have to buy groceries, they may have transportation costs. So those students oftentimes need a student loan to be able to help them get by and to get to school. And of course, student loans and financial aid can't pay for everything, unfortunately. So oftentimes we'll ask them, if they have a part-time job. Now we discourage them, if they're a full-time student, we don't want them to work full-time either, because something's going to give, and it's typically going to be their schoolwork. So what we tell them is, don't work more than 20 hours a week. If you're going to get a job, make it part-time. Your main job is your education.
We know that in the national media there's a lot of talk about the total amount of student debt which exceeds now credit card debt.
Right.
In addition to sort of loan debt and various different things, there's also sort of some funding on the state side. So can you sort of describe a little bit the sort of state funding that is available for students?
Right. The state of Illinois has a monetary award program. It's called the MAP grant is what we call it. And that's available to Illinois residents. And it's a very nice grant, and it'll help pay for some of the mandatory tuition and fees at the colleges and universities. Unfortunately, the amount of money is very limited, and the suspense date, or the date that they have to cut off that money, has been getting shorter and shorter each year. We just found out that for the first time in history, the suspense date was actually the last part of February. First time it's happened in the over 40 years that this grant has been around. And community college students typically will apply later for financial aid. And so oftentimes they miss out on this opportunity. Well, fortunately, we kind of knew that the situation the state was in, so we've been spreading that word since last November. The Illinois Student Assistance Commission, which oversees that grant, they actually have core members, ISAC core members in each one of the community college districts. They help us spread that word. They're in direct communication with the high schools. And then Parkland itself did a wonderful campaign in January and February telling all our current students here to do it now. That was the hashtag, do it now, and to apply for financial aid. And it's a good thing we did, because we have a tremendous amount of financial aid applications coming in. In fact, we received almost a third of our year-long amount in 2 months. And most people hadn't really even done their taxes at this point, but we told them, you don't have to have your taxes done. You just submit it, estimate your taxes, use the year prior, and that way you're in line. And you'll have your processing date would be before the suspense date that the state announced.
Very good. We're going to continue to talk about state funding and veterans services here at Parkland College when we return after this short break.
Hey, Allison and Dylan, what if I told you could get a head start on college before you graduated high school and for little to no cost?
Well, I'd ask you what the catch is.
Yeah, how can I take college courses if I haven't even finished high school yet?
That's easy. You simply enroll in dual credit courses at Parkland College.
But won't that be expensive?
Yeah, will all the credits transfer?
Well, most four-year universities accept these credits, and you're actually saving money. Many times the high school will even cover the cost of the course.
I'm sorry, did I overhear you guys correctly? Did you just say that you could take college courses without paying college tuition?
Yeah, all we pay for is the course and the textbook, and we can earn college credit towards getting our degree.
You guys are catching on. The credit works toward a 2-year degree, a 4-year degree, and even toward career certificate programs.
I like the sound of this.
I don't know, this all sounds great, but I already have a busy schedule and I won't have time to drive to classes.
You won't have to. Parkland offers a number of dual credit courses online, in addition to the on-campus courses. Some of the courses are even taught in your high school.
You mean to say that one of the high school classes I'm taking right now could work as a dual credit course as well?
Yes, you should talk to the school counselor to see which classes are offered as dual credit in our school. Then all you need to do is apply to Parkland, and once you're accepted, fill out the application to the dual credit program. You'll need the signature of your parents and advisor for this.
That sounds easy enough, but are there any requirements to being eligible for dual credit?
Yes, you must be a junior or senior in high school, age 16 or above, in order to be eligible for dual credit courses. You can print an application online or visit Parkland's admissions office to pick one up.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to see the counselor right now.
Yeah, I don't want to miss out on this opportunity.
Me neither.
Catch live, play-by-play coverage of Parkland sports. Live the action live. CobraSports.net.
And welcome back to the Parkland Report. Tim, we were talking just before break about the sort of state funding and the crush on students. A lot of the planning for college has to take place earlier and earlier due to restriction in the amount of funds available. But also the paperwork's quite complex, and students need to have a good sense of what it is they think they want to do.
Correct. It's always good to kind of be talking about this for traditional age students, to be talking about this with their parents and have a general idea. I mean, we don't expect a student, coming onto our campus to know exactly what they want to do with their life, but at least have a general idea of maybe an interest that they want to proceed in, because the way financial aid is structured, there's a lot of personal accountability now that's put onto the student. A student has just so much time that they're going to be eligible for financial aid at a community college and at a university. And so they have to be making academic progress towards their goal every single semester. That's a big change, from just a couple decades ago. And there's lifetime limits on all of these programs now. You can only get the Pell Grant for 6 years. Mm-hmm. So you have to be kind of, cognizant of what you want to do and where you want to go, and then start achieving that. And student loans even, there's a lifetime limit on those now as well, and part of that is because of the outstanding student loan debt that everyone's so concerned about.
And of course it makes sense for a student as far as having fiscal responsibility and also keeping an academic track and goal sort of that they can achieve. I mean, ultimately that's in the student's best interest to get through as quickly as they can.
They're going to incur the fewest amount of cost, or the lowest cost, by going for exactly what they want to do, taking those classes and get done with them, and then moving on if that's their choice. They need to do it, and do it with purpose.
And part of what the requirement from the federal government, of course, as well, is to sort of like provide students an accurate sort of estimate of what their potential earnings are in terms of a particular degree course or certificate course that they might take.
There's a lot of information available on the web, and even here at our own college, throughout the Career Center, if, for example, you can go in there and get kind of an idea, if you're interested in a certain career, what that career might pay starting out. A lot of students may have some misconceptions about what their starting pay would be for a certain career. Mm-hmm. It's always good to have all of that information before you start out on that path.
In addition to the traditional sort of loans and grants from the state and federal government, your office also coordinates other sources of financial support for students through scholarships and various different awards that are available. Can you talk a little bit about how that's coordinated with your office?
Yes, our office also has a veterans coordinator, and she oversees all of the federal and state grant and scholarship programs that are targeted towards veterans. Actually, myself, when I returned from the Army back to Illinois, I didn't realize that the state had a veterans program. Mm-hmm. I went in under the assumption it was under a program called the Veterans Educational Assistance Program, mm-hmm. which was later renamed back to the GI Bill. And so I was very pleasantly surprised to know that if you lived in the state before you went into the military, were honorably discharged, came back to the state, then the state would honor an agreement that they made with the students that they will give you 4 free years of college. Mm-hmm. So I got that in addition to the GI Bill money. And we have a lot of veterans here, and of course with all of the wars winding down, we're seeing a great influx of veterans here, and a lot of them have, not only the apprehension of returning to school after being on the battlefield, some of them have various injuries, you know, like traumatic brain injuries or post-traumatic stress disorders. So we try to be there and at least direct the students where they can get help throughout the community. And here at Parkland, we're very fortunate. We have a wonderful Office of Disability Services that's available to help our veteran students. And but there's approximately 350 students right now that are receiving veterans benefits at Parkland College. The state veterans grants are, like I said, wonderful. Unfortunately, in the last couple of years, the state has stopped paying the colleges and the universities to provide those classes and those degrees to the students. So basically the community colleges and the universities around Illinois are providing free education for all of our veteran students. It used to be that, of course, we were reimbursed because this was the state's guarantee to the veterans that if you come back here, we'll make sure you get an education. Well, that's their guarantee, but there's no funding for that guarantee, so it falls on the colleges and the universities to basically provide that education for free. So that's been a hard pill for us to swallow. You know, budgetary conditions in the state aren't good. Our allocations from the state are down already. When then you start cutting out paying for these, you know, these veterans grants and scholarships, the funding decreases that we've seen from the state now become much larger when you pile on $500,000, $750,000 that we're not receiving from the state for programs that we're offering for our veteran students. And of course, we'll continue to offer those because we believe in that, and it's our job to provide education. But it sure would be nice to get some of that money back that they promised us.
I think very important also for our veteran students to have an office which clearly identifies veterans in the title, because they do have a different set of requirements and obviously, like you said, a completely different context that they're returning from.
Exactly.
And I think having a specialized veteran support service person, for example, and Christina Taylor, for example, who's somebody that they can go and talk with and be counseled through.
Christina is very knowledgeable. She grew up what we call an Army brat when I was in the military. Her father was in the military, and so she grew up around military bases all around the world. So she's very, very familiar with the kind of things that military families go through, and so she is a very good person and very empathetic to the plights of the veterans. And she's very involved with the state and regional organizations. She's president of AVICO, which is the Association for Veterans Certifying Officials, which is a 14-state regional organization. And she provides leadership to a lot of people around the state and is a leader really in that community. And so we really appreciate and we value her being on our staff.
Can you talk a little bit about some of the extra things you do in your office to foster a sense of fiscal responsibility or explain to people the importance of learning how to budget money or learning how to work with money? Because you do sponsor a number of events throughout the year.
Yes, we're involved with several types of events. We used to have a fashion show where we would you know, show off from the various resellers, clothing resellers in Champaign-Urbana, how you can get very nice clothing for a lot less of a price than if it was new. And some of these still had tags on them. They were new. So that was one way we did it. We try to partner with other departments on campus for, you know, discussions or presentations to just get the word out that you have to take control of your finances. We've worked with the freshman orientation class. We'll do presentations in that class about money management and financial aid. And in fact, the freshman orientation class now does offer some financial management information in it, along with time management, which is really important as well. And so that's, we try to be very involved and do what we can to help the students.
And students are also able to take advantage of, like through our foundation and through various different private scholarships and private funds that many of our students may not even be aware are available to them.
Right. We're very fortunate. We have a wonderful foundation. here at Parkland, and they raise a lot of money every year to give money to our students in the form of scholarships. Currently, we have 2 scholarship periods, one that starts in the spring, March 15th to April 15th, and that's for scholarships that will be awarded in the fall, that following fall. And then in the fall, we have October 15th as the starting date and November 15th as the deadline there for scholarships that will be active in the next spring. Unfortunately, what we see is that some scholarships will go unawarded, and so we'll have to extend the deadlines. We'll reach out to department chairs, to faculty, to the students themselves. We've developed some technology that allows us to pinpoint students that are in a certain career and actually send them personal emails and tell them, we think you may be eligible for this based on your, the criteria. You may want to think about applying for this. But I think it's the dreaded essay that scares a lot of the students off. So it just takes a little bit of work, though, and some of those scholarships are worth hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, so it is worth it to spend that hour or two writing that essay. And then if nothing else, you can modify it maybe slightly to apply for another scholarship. So we really encourage that, and there's people here to help. In the Center for Academic Success, we have a writing lab there, and there are people all around Parkland that are willing to help these students write these essays and to help them apply for these scholarships. The students have to tap into that resource, and this is free money. This is not money that has to be paid back.
Sure. Tim, thanks so much for all that you do for our students here at Parkland and for all the great advice you give them, and thanks for being here in the Parkland Report.
Thank you.
That's it for this edition of Parkland Report. We'll see you back here next time.